remember myself and tell you a little bit about my story and how God has worked through me, continues to work through me. So, actually, I grew up in a Christian household. I went to church, and so none of that was foreign to me. But I became, or my faith started, I say, when I was younger, much younger, around 7. And I always say that it started in fear and rules. And I say that because I was scared of the monsters in the fire, and I didn't want to go to hell. And I knew that there were all these rules that I needed to follow. And to my childlike brain, if I didn't follow them, then I could therefore maybe go back into the fire with the monsters. So I'm not saying that my church at the time or my family, I mean, we are creatures of our environment. So some things were being drilled into my head, some things weren't. Some things were just the way it is. That's just what I came to understand, and it wasn't always what I heard. But that's where it started for me. And that fear led to me trying to follow the rules and to be perfect. And so I would try to do that, and then I would fail because we're human beings and we're not perfect. And I would continue that cycle all throughout my formative years up until I get into college around my junior year. And so I just kept what I call binging and purging on it, on trying to be perfect, failing, and then falling. And at one point every time I fail harder. And at one point I hit rock bottom. You could say I went into the pit. And that was a really, really hard place to be in. I ended up quitting school for that semester and moving back. I was having lots of panic attacks, so I was on medicine, and that medicine just basically numbed me. And I didn't have any purpose. I remember thinking at the time, it's not that I wanted to die, but I remember very vividly with just the understanding that if I weren't to wake up, if I didn't wake up, I went to sleep, that I'd be okay with that. It was just where I was. And it was in that moment that when I gave up and I walked into that darkness, it was really there that I met Jesus. And so Jesus sat with me in that pain. He sat with me in that shame, in that period of darkness, and he stayed with me. And so I said in the beginning that it started in fear and rules, but my faith was truly born when I met Jesus and discovered the love that he had for me. And so up until now, fast forward, it's not like one day everything was fine. But I'm not also chasing those rules and perfection and all that pressure anymore. It's a journey, and the Spirit is guiding me, and I am diligently trying to walk with the Spirit, and I have received a new understanding of the perfect love of our Father. And I'll just end my story with saying that I grew up with anxiety since I can remember. It was my identity. I was someone with social anxiety, and it was so bad. It got significantly worse as I grew up, and it was so bad that I couldn't answer the phone. And that was both personally and at work. I just couldn't do it. And if I lived with myself or with others, I couldn't answer the door if someone was to come. I definitely couldn't go to new places. because I would obsess over where's the parking, how do I get in, how do I get out, what is it like there, who's going to be there. And I would often ruminate for months sometimes on a simple social situation or a conversation that I had that they definitely don't remember. But yet you see me here. And that is the love and the grace of our Father. I'm actually going to read a verse in 2 Corinthians. It's 12:9. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. So grace, when I hear grace, it's that undue favor. It's undeserved favor. And the Lord, just in his love and his favor, took that anxiety for me and said, this is not working for me anymore, and I need you. And so he took it. And I am so thankful. It just leads to gratitude and thankfulness, but it also demonstrates his deep love and his power. That the medicine, all of the different things, all the therapy, all of that, they're tools. Yes, I'm not saying that they're inherently bad. I am saying that God is our healer, and only he can provide perfect healing for us. So, thank you for listening. And we've been actually in a series on joy for the last several weeks. And Robert's been speaking on the definition, and for us, it's really seeing joy as being the sparkle in someone's eyes, right? So God sees us. We are the sparkle in his eye, and also that we're called to be that in others. And he's been talking about it from this neurological lens, in that we are one, I will just say and start off, we are a whole person, right? Mind, body, and spirit. And we have two sides to our brain. We have a left side and we have this right side. And the left side is where that rational intelligence, all of those types of behaviors, our to-do lists, our productivity, all of those things live, knowledge and theology. And then we have the right side, and the right side is more relational. It's more sensory. It's use of our emotions. One way I like to think of it, because it's just easier for me, is we are heart and mind. We are two things. And we are meant to be both things as one. We are meant to be whole. But it seems like as a church that we're going into the direction of using our left brain a lot more heavily than our right brain. And we're using less of our heart and less of that relation and intention. And so I've really been thinking on all of the things that he's been speaking about, and what's beautiful is that God, even before I knew that I would be speaking, even before I knew this series on joy was coming, God has already been taking me through this understanding of joy. I do want to add a really good quote that I like from this psychiatrist. His name is Curt Thompson. And he says, "We are all born into the world looking for someone looking for us." And that's so true. I mean, that's just a basic truth. It doesn't matter what theology you're talking about, psychology, sociology, theology, whatever. We want to be loved. We want to be seen. We want to be wanted. I'm going to actually read from a journal. I'm going to tell you a story. And it's about this beautiful encounter I had with my son Abner. He will be 2 in April. And I also have a little one on the way, to be determined, May 31st. Thank you. Thank you. And I had Abner sitting on my lap, and we were on the couch together, and he would lift up my shirt and he would kiss my belly. And as I was reflecting on that, it was very cute. It was very sweet. And as I was reflecting on that, I thought, Abner doesn't understand that there's really a baby in my belly, right? He just knows that I'm his world, that I made him, and that anything that is of me, he wants to adore and he wants to love. And he does it without reservation. Like, he just knows, like, if this is in you, Mama, yeah, I want it. I want to love it. So I'm going to actually read something that I wrote in January on the 10th. Abner kissed the baby in my belly today. Even if he doesn't fully understand it, he loves. Isn't that how we should be? I am his mom, the one whom he has always known. I brought him into the world. It's like anything that's within me means it's special. It means it's worth offering affection toward. And like Abner, how much more should we do this with Jesus? We don't fully understand the Trinity, and yet we know that God gave us life. His love is seen and felt. Even if we don't fully understand it, we should love. I think we have much to learn from children, because even if we don't understand it, God loved us and God made us in his image. And so I'm going to talk a bit about where God has had me. As I said before, I have already been diving into this concept of joy, but God first started me and gave me this image, and I've been working and walking toward the Spirit with this image and the word of rest. And for me at the time, this was about a year ago, rest meant to trust in God and his goodness. And little did I know that he gave me that word because I was getting ready to go into a very difficult situation. I was being refined in the refiner's fire. And in that situation, it was a Bible study, and it was an encounter with a newcomer that really dismantled our group in a very dramatic way. Very different theological beliefs than me. And it led to confusion, and it led to pride and anger. It also led to nights, long talks with God, where I would question his goodness by what some of the claims that this person made. And so all of those things, I was still on the rock, right? I would not be overcome or destroyed. And yet these things were something that I was going through. And what did God tell me? To rest, to trust, and know that he is good. Oswald Chambers has a good quote. I love it. It's the root of all evil is the suspicion that God is not good. I had to be reminded of who God is and what he's done for me. And he led me through that period. I am on the other side of that. And now he has changed that word rest, and he has introduced me to another. Because you know what? When the Lord speaks, it doesn't end. And so that rest for me now, he's had me encounter this Sabbath rest. And so in Genesis, God creates, right? Every day. After every day he creates something, he says it's good. And on the seventh day, it says that God rested. God wasn't tired. God doesn't get tired. So then it makes you reflect on and contemplate what it is that God was resting. Like, what does it mean to rest? And so I like to dive into word studies. I'm not by any means an expert in either or any of those languages, but from what I could tell in referencing that word and all the rest, that it can mean in English to stop or to rest or to celebrate. And I had just really come to see a new understanding of this day that God created, where he just sat back and delighted in his creation. And I think he created that delight for us. We are part of his creation. And that's what God needed me to understand and to meet him in, was his delight. And when I say delight, I also mean joy. Those things, joy and delight. So in my search to understand this, I had to discover that rest, joy, delighting in God and his creation, that for me it's intention, it's reflection, it's breath, it's wonder and awe and stillness and surrender. This other gentleman, Dan B. Allender, he says, too many times we try to impress God by ourselves. We work for God's pleasure instead of with God's pleasure. And I'll say that again. We work for God's pleasure instead of with God's pleasure. Oh, I did that. I do that, right? To do that, to work with God's pleasure, as I said, it takes intention and practice and gratitude. And while the left brain, that mind, can be helpful in order to truly delight in God, we need our heart, we need both. And to do that, we need to remove the distractions, to stop rushing, to forget about the to-do list that we're doing, and we just need to stop. And we need to sit with God and encounter God and praise God and worship him for who he is and what he's done. I have been speaking pretty conceptually, and I have 6 practices that I think we should all do. And I will get into those, but before I do, I just want to say, and you already know, I have a baby on the way. I have an almost 2-year-old. I work a full-time 30-hour job a week. And Abner goes to the sitter 3 days a week, so that means on Mondays and Fridays I can't work. I have to care for him. And so I work 10-hour days on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then I have to sprinkle in the rest of those 10 hours when he's napping or late at night or early in the morning. And Tim and I actually, we were in Massachusetts living. We moved here in 2020 because my dad has Alzheimer's and I needed to move home and help my mom, so we live with them. I'm not saying this to prove anything. I'm saying it because we all have something. We all have a life. We all have priorities. And all I'm asking is that you take a look at your priorities and what you're devoting your attention to. Because the devil is going to lie and say that you need that. And also, whatever you're pouring your attention to is what you serve. We all serve something. We do. So as I go through these practices, I just want you to remain open. And I also want to challenge you, because some of these are going to be something that will get disrupted and you will fail. But I really want you to keep trying because of what I've seen. And I'm going to tell you what I've seen and what God has shown me through revelation. So the first practice is stillness and silence. I want you to go into a room by yourself If it needs to be the bathroom, so be it. I want you to bring a phone or a timer or something, because you're going to set a timer for 2 minutes and you're just going to sit with God and you're going to breathe and you're just going to be with Him. And I say bring a timer because I don't want you worrying about how long it's been, and I want you to completely get out of your head. Also, 2 minutes sometimes can feel like eternity. And after you do it for 2 minutes, I want you to do it for 5 minutes later on, and then for 10 minutes, and then as long as God calls you to that, to sit there with Him. But it's powerful, and I can attest to it because I do it. The second practice is to remember, as I started off, remembering myself. Write things down. It can be on a napkin. It can be an audio message to yourself. It could be a beautiful story, journal entry, whatever. I'm not actually a journaler, but I have started. I just want you to stop, either at the end of the day or in the morning, and reflect on memories, on experiences, on insignificant things that have popped up. Let nothing be hindered in that, because God will speak to you when you write those things down. And you're going to start to see connections through all of your experiences, and it's beautiful. And so I don't care. Don't get too wrapped up. It doesn't matter how long it is. It doesn't matter if it's grammatically correct. It doesn't matter if you can read it. I promise you, He will speak to you if you just write it down. The third, it's experience God's power and beauty. With this one, sit outside under the stars one night and just look. Or maybe if you're blessed to go to an ocean, to watch the waves, see how far it goes out. Like, it feels like it goes out forever. You could read about the expansiveness of our universe if you're into research and you like to nerd out. Better yet, the interconnectedness of our bodies. If you really want to discover God, learn about the birth process. And in all of those situations, whatever it is, you're going to encounter the beauty and also the power of God. Like, there is something, even people that are not believers, they see this expansiveness, they recognize it. And in those moments, we see God and how powerful that He is, and also how insignificant we are. And I mention the insignificance because it's so important that we remain humble and that we have gratitude. Because even though we're insignificant, God made us in His image. We were meant to be partners with Him and to rule the world, and He loves us. And so, in those moments, if you can have them, they're powerful, and you will be left in awe. You really will. How are we doing? Those first three. Good? The fourth one is to be curious. So I want you to slow down. I want you to mimic a child. Notice the insignificant. Stop. Figure out how something works. Look at something. Use all of your senses. See, hear, touch, feel, taste. And in those moments, you're going to start to feel this innocence, I guess, and also this joy that children clearly have. And you can start to mimic them and be like them more. Just savor moments. The fifth one, and it's something that our church has been practicing in the 30 days of gratitude, is to practice gratitude. And so every single day, take time and reflect on memories or relationships or blessings or your situation, and just be grateful. and be thankful to God and also for other people and the role that they play in that. That's that humility that Jesus clearly lived out. Last one. This one is to delight in good things. So for me, it's hiking or rock climbing. It could be cuddled on the couch with a book, or eating really good food with friends, or cooking. For Robert, it's playing the guitar. Whatever it is, just delight in those good things that God gave us. And I stress good things because we can delight in lots of things and they are not good. So just be careful about what you're choosing to delight in. So I know the list is long, but I want you to just pick one and try it. And when you forget about it, just try it again. If you forget for a week, and then come back to it. And when you fail, start again. This is where your left brain really comes in handy, because your left brain can keep you diligent. It can keep you practicing. It can keep you trying again. And I went through all of these in some form or fashion. It's not like I do them every single day, every single time. I fail a lot too. But as I started to encounter this delight and joy, and really I was shown something so powerful. I mean, I remember when I experienced it, I just thought, oh my gosh, like my entire life up to this point makes sense now. And so I want to share that with you. And I received that revelation from God through these practices. So I'm going to start with Proverbs 9:10, because that's where it started for me. And it says there, "And the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding." I always struggled with that verse. I've heard lots of commentaries. Sanctuary did a series on it. It's not that I don't understand it. I felt like there was something missing. And God just added this other complete understanding for me that only He could provide. And it was just beautiful. And it connects directly to my story. I started out in fear. And so it's saying the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. It's the beginning because it's a journey. Okay? And so for me, I started out fearing God. I started to fear Him as as a servant would fear a master. And fear of the punishment that the master would bring. And then when I hit that low, low, low place, that darkness, I encountered Jesus. And there, my fear moved to hope. And I discovered a friend. In John 15:15, it says, "No longer do I call you servants." This is Jesus talking. "For a servant does not know what his master is doing, but I have called you friends. For all things that I heard from my Father, I have made known to you." So I went from fear. It started there in the beginning of wisdom. And then I moved to hope in Jesus. And then now I sit as a daughter, adopted in perfect love. 1 John 4:18. "There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. For fear has to do with punishment. And whoever fears has not been perfected in love." It's the beginning of wisdom because it's a journey. And it moves from fear to hope and ultimately joy. Because it moves from fear of our master to love, perfect love of our Father. This really just demonstrates the power of the Spirit and how he can move in someone's life. If I hadn't been remembering and writing things down, and if I haven't been practicing stillness and silence or being curious and noticing, I would not have received this. So I was in my office one night, and I looked up, and on the shelf was this weathered piece of wood from the desert. I obviously put it there, but something made me stop. And so I looked. I just looked. And then later on, it was night. I was writing about my day, and I wrote that down. And I looked up, and Abner, he had a little lion, and it was laying in the floor. And I was like, huh. So I stopped, and I thought. I continued writing more. I have a baby inside me. I got hungry eventually. I went and got an apple. I cut it up. I was sitting with the pillow like on my belly. I had the apple slices there. I was eating them. And I thought, oh, this is it's the Honeycrisp apples. They're so sweet and tart and crisp and yummy. And I thought, oh, this is so good. And then the Spirit just rushed over me. That lion devours. That's that fear. And that weathered wood, that's me. That's the dry desert. That's being dead when I met Jesus in that place. And the fruit, taste and see that the Lord is good. That fruit is the fruit of the Spirit and His wisdom and His understanding. And that's the journey. And I'm not there yet, but I will tell you, I have not realized or understood the perfect love of our Father up until this point. And I'm still trying to learn. For followers of Jesus, I think we have much to learn, that's for sure. But we have even more to experience. And so I really had it all backwards. I thought if I obey Him, it means I love Him. And that is backwards. He loved us first. And when I experienced that moment, those moments with Jesus, and I realized His love for me, then I wanted to follow Him. I wanted to understand how He lives, and I wanted to obey Him, because then it wasn't correction or control, it was protection. That's it. He just wants me to obey because He wants to protect me, because He loves me, because He's good. And no one can tell me that He's not. I'm actually going to close here. Robert's going to come up and play a song. He's going to delight in some good things. I'll say, sometimes we try to sell God through our branding or our strategy or our numbers that we come up with. All God wants us to do is remember and witness, to tell others who He is and what He's done for us. And I was reminded of that too. I just hope that you can pick some of these practices to start, and you can just receive. You can receive what I've received, because it is so good. It is so, so good.
Our God is the Lion of Judah, roaring with power and fighting our battles, and every knee will bow before Him. Our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sins of the world. His blood breaks the chains, and every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb, and every knee will bow before Him. The Lion and the Lamb. our praise